This is Seth Green. Welcome to my live podcast training webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go ahead and get started in about 7 minutes. If you haven't gotten your free advanced manuscript of my new book, Podcast Marketing Magic, you can get a free PDF copy of the book at ultimatemarketingmagician.com. That book is a compilation of me interviewing 20 top podcasters, along with a number of other bonus interviews where I interviewed some of the top marketing thought leaders in the world and got them to spill their secrets. So the podcasters talk about how they started, how they grew, how they monetized. There's a lot of great information in there that ultimately inspired the next level, which is what you're going to see today in just a few minutes. Want to say thank you so much for being here. It is my pleasure to be serving you and sharing this information with you. My goal is to give you a ton of great step-by-step how-to content of how you can duplicate my results, how you can do what I did. I'm going to be sharing how this works in every industry we've done it in and how it can work for you too. If you are not already subscribed to my direct response marketing podcast, you want to head over to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast, which will take you to the iTunes podcast, where we air multiple episodes every week, interviewing cutting edge entrepreneurs, thought leaders, marketers, podcasters, public relations experts, you name it, all folks to add value, give you ideas, inspiration, tips, and tactics and tricks to help grow your business while keeping you sane. So that is all available at ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast. And if you would be so kind as if you do like the podcast, please subscribe to it so you download all the episodes, new episode automatically to your iPhone. And if you like it, I'd love a 5-star review and a good rating. And I'd love feedback. Guests you want to hear from, people you want to learn from, takeaways you got, share it on Facebook, tweet it out, LinkedIn status updates, you name it, post it on Instagram, share it with the world. Let's spread our message of growing your business while growing your peace of mind at the same time to as many folks as possible. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a few minutes. This is Seth Green. If you are here for my very special one-time only live podcast training webinar, you are in the right place. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the podcast training webinar. So today you are about to discover how to get impossible to reach decision makers, prospects, centers of influence, referral sources, affiliates to seek you out, to chase you. You'll even learn how to get them to happily promote you without having to ask them. They will literally volunteer. I know it sounds too good to be true. I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't done it. You will also learn how to write a book without writing a book. I am currently working on my 7th book, and I have only physically written one of them. And you'll see what I mean by that in just a minute. And you're also going to learn how to get customers from iTunes for as little as $15 a month. So have you ever wondered, have you ever seen, it seems like if you're in, let's say, the internet marketing space or the business development space, you'll see, for example, you might get an email from Jeff Walker and then Mike Vilsame and then Frank Kern and Ryan Deiss and all those guys, and they're all promoting the same thing. They're all saying, hey, don't buy Mike Koenig's latest product from Ryan, buy it from me because I've got a better bonus. And it seems like they all promote each other, and it seems like a conspiracy, because it is. They literally are all working together to promote each other's stuff, to make each other money and get each other clients. And Frank Kern has no problem emailing his list for Ryan Deiss because A, he's going to get a commission on anything that Ryan sells to Frank's list. But Frank knows that some of the people who are going to resonate with one of Ryan's products or services. So he's happy to have them buy from Ryan as well as himself. And you can be a part of that. Not necessarily, I'm not saying I'm going to get Frank Kern to mail for you, but you can build your own network, your own conspiracy network of people who are willing to actively promote your products and services, sometimes without even getting paid for it, by using what I'm about to share with you. So not only can you get folks promoting for you, you can get a book done for you without having to do it yourself. You can get new customers, new prospects, new media exposure, all through what we're going to share today. You're about to discover the exact system I use to do this in my business, the exact system we use for our clients, and the exact system you can use for yourself. I promise, if you stay to the end, I will give you the exact steps for podcasting success to do what I'm talking about here. I will even give you my interview questions, the exact questions I use to interview people and the psychology behind them to A, turn into a great book, and B, get them to promote for you. I will even show you how to get this all done for you so you don't even have to do the work yourself if you want. So why podcasting? First, let's talk about what podcasting is. So podcasting is basically a new media radio show. If you think about it, the most listened to podcasts are audio, not video, because if you're audio, you can multitask. You can listen to an audio podcast while you're working out, while you're at the gym. You could play it on your headphones while you're at work. It's a little harder to, multitask on a treadmill and watch a video. So podcasting is basically a radio show. The most popular format is an interview format. Now, there are podcasts where people just talk, where somebody just rants, for example. However, the most popular format is an interview format, and the interview format is the format you're going to want to use to do what I'm about to show you. And the most popular time, the most listened to podcasts are about 15 minutes to 30 minutes. That's where you're going to want to stay within, and I'm going to show you how to do 30 minutes or less. Because if you think about it, a lot of people don't have time to listen to a much longer interview while they're working out or while they're multitasking. Now, there are people like Tim Ferriss or Gary Vaynerchuk who might do a 2-hour interview podcast. If you're Tim Ferriss and you have a following loyal enough to listen to you for 2 hours, God bless you. I haven't gotten to that point yet. So I'm going to share with you how we do it and how you can do it too. So why podcasting? You can get impossible to reach decision makers to seek you out. You can write a book without writing a book, and you can get customers for as little as $15 a month. Now think about it. Why this is important now. Why this is timely. You'll see this is new iTunes new and noteworthy. And you'll see here I am. There's little old me, direct response marketing. I am number 3. Now that changes every day. But I have been as high as number 3 on iTunes new and noteworthy. And I don't have 8,000 reviews. I don't have 8 million downloads. I'm not, Gary Vaynerchuk. So it's depending on how you set your podcast up, you can get media credibility really, really quickly really, really easily without necessarily having to have a huge following. I didn't build my podcast to have the following, although that's a bonus. I built it to do exactly what you're about to see today. I built it to make money and help people. Now, one of the lessons I learned doing the interviews for Podcast Marketing Magic is the majority, 99% of podcasters are making this mistake. They think that you have to build up to have enough listeners, enough downloads, enough subscribers to then make money on your podcast by selling advertising or sponsorship. Because if you think about podcasting like a radio show, how do radio shows make money? They sell ads. However, I'm going to ask you to think differently, because I literally was making money from my podcast within the first 30 days, and I think I had less than 1,000 downloads. I did not have anywhere. I couldn't have gotten probably a sponsor or someone to buy ads on my show at that time. So if you do it the way I share, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is what I did. If you do it the way I share with you, you don't need to worry about, do I have enough subscribers to get ad revenue? How do I sell ads on my show? You don't need to do any of that. This will make you a whole lot more money and help a lot more people than selling ad space. So why is this important now? In case you don't know what this is, this is Apple CarPlay. This is what's coming if you don't have it already. The next time you trade in your car and get a new car, the next generation of cars from all of the major car manufacturers are coming pre-bundled with the Apple CarPlay interface. And you will see the apps that are coming. And the most important app to see is not the GPS right there. It's that little purple app that says podcast on it. You won't be able to delete this from your car. It's forced. You get a car, you have this. That is the Apple iTunes podcast app, which means Apple is essentially trying to do away with terrestrial FM radio. They are trying to make regular radio a dinosaur because they are trying to replace radio in your cars and on your phones. So this is incredibly important that you take advantage of this, and because the time is now. There are over 1 billion people listening to Apple Podcasts right now, and only 25% of the entire world's population has a smartphone. Now, Brendan Burchard shared with me something a couple months ago that in the next 5 years, by 2020, 75% of the world's population will have a smartphone. So if you think about the fact that right now, the majority of the world doesn't have a smartphone, and they're about to in the next 5 years, what is that going to do when when several billion people come online, and the only way they access the internet is through their phones, and they're listening to podcasts, and they're reading books on their phones? They're going to podcast app. They're going to Amazon. Are you showing up there? Because if you're not, you're going to get left behind. They will be looking for you. You've got to be there to show up. So that's why the time is now. There are 1 billion people listening to podcasts. That number's about to go up when everyone gets a Apple car, smart car, and when everyone has a smartphone. So the market's about to explode. So this is the bottom. This is the ground floor. All right, technically the ground floor was when the first podcast came, when iTunes came out a few years ago. But this is the wild, wild west now. It's wide open. I guarantee you there probably aren't too many of your competitors doing it. And if they are, they're not doing it right. So before I get into telling you exactly how it works and how you can do this for yourself, and we go right through the steps that I took, let's back up for 2 seconds and talk about who am I and why should you listen to me. In case you don't know, I am the best-selling author of, I've written 6 books now. I've got to update that graphic because the 6th one, just Podcast Marketing Magic, that you now have, is about to come out. And I've had the good fortune to work with and learn from and interview and do business with some of the top names in the business, including Dan Kennedy, who you see standing to the right of me, and who you saw in the video at ultimatemarketingmagician.com talking about me from stage at a recent event, which was absolutely incredible. But I didn't start out that way. I didn't start out as a marketing guru. I went to Syracuse University for my undergraduate education to get my degree in acting. I was going to be a Broadway star. That was my plan. And my senior year, 2 of my friends and I decided to produce an interactive murder mystery musical called The Mystery of Edwin Drood. We formed a student organization. We went to student government and applied for funding. We were granted our funding to produce our musical, and we were off to the races. One of my friends was the director. The other guy was the musical director. I was the producer. I was the money man. I was running the business. And what happened was 6 weeks from opening night, I got a phone call from the student government, and they said, we need to talk, which is never something you want to hear. Not from your girlfriend, not from your wife, not from the student government. They called us in, we went back in, and they said, we made a mistake. The bylaws of student government say we cannot give a first-time organization, i.e. you, that much funding. We gave you too much money. We need half of it back. And I said, we're 6 weeks from opening night. I can't give you half the money back. Then I have no show. And they said, too bad. We're taking the money back. We're taking it from the checking account, from your organization. It's gone. So I had a choice. I could cancel the show and admit defeat, or I could find a way to come up with the money. Well, if you've ever seen the 1980s movie Top Gun with Tom Cruise, that I believe they're making a remake of now, a new version of, Tom Cruise had a bald, cigar-chomping admiral like on the boat. And he said to Tom Cruise, one of my favorite lines in the movie is, son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash. Unfortunately, that's what I did. I said, hey, guys, to my friends, we lost half our budget, but I've got all these pre-approved credit card applications in the mail at my apartment. Why don't I fill them out, send them back, get some credit cards? I'll charge the budget on our credit card. And then if we don't make the money back from ticket sales, we'll split the debt 3 ways when we graduate. You guys will get credit cards, write me credit card advance checks, and we'll split it 3 ways, and that's how we'll do it. And they said, okay, terrific. So I did it. And I didn't know anything about marketing in college. So we did not sell enough tickets. And I went to my friends and I said, okay, we're graduating, guys. We got to split the debt 3 ways. They went to their parents and asked for permission, who of course said no, because that's what my parents would have said had I asked for permission, which is why I didn't go, because I didn't want them to say no. So I got stuck with all of the debt from the show, which I could not, which was more money than which was twice my annual salary at my first job. I could not even make, I tried for like a year. I could barely make the interest payments to cover it. And this was a long time ago. Interest rates weren't 0% back then. And those friends are not my friends anymore because they screwed me over. And I ended up having to go bankrupt because I couldn't pay it back. And at the time, I thought it was one of the worst days of my life, until many years later when I had the good fortune to work with Dan Kennedy. And Dan said, you've only gone bankrupt once? Wow, that's really rare. He said, I've gone bankrupt like 3 times. You've only failed in business once? That's awesome. And I said, holy cow, he just totally changed my mindset. So after going bankrupt, because I borrowed a whole bunch of money to gamble essentially on something I knew nothing about, I decided a really good career choice would be to become a financial advisor. So if you've seen Boiler Room, then you know this guy, Giovanni Ribisi, who plays Seth, incidentally, a cold calling stockbroker. If you haven't seen the movie, it's probably on Netflix or you can rent it. I highly suggest it. It's really, really good. And everything I did in the movie, everything he does in the movie, he does some illegal stuff in the movie. What I did was legal. I cold called 300 strangers a day, interrupted them during dinner, and asked them for money. And that kind of sucked. And if you've ever tried it, it's not the easiest, most fun way to make a living when you're getting rejected all the time. So in my spare time, I'm a professional magician. I was reading a trade journal for magicians. I saw a full-page ad for a marketing course for magicians. I bought I didn't have the money at the time because, remember, I had just gone bankrupt. So I asked my parents to buy the course for me for my birthday. I used other people's money. They bought the course from a guy named Dave D. I bought the course. I got the course. I implemented it. I doubled my prices. I became the most expensive magician in Western New York. And I also became the busiest. I didn't become a better magician. I didn't learn any more tricks, but I became a better marketer. And my magic business transformed. So I reached out to Dave D. and I said, would this work in my real job as a financial planner? He said, yes, it would. I said, where'd you learn it? He said, Dan Kennedy. So I went to Dan. And Dan said, you're doing everything in your business marketing and your financial services business wrong. You're cold calling for business. You're begging. You're interrupting strangers. I mean, that's what your industry taught, but it's completely wrong. He said, write me this really big check and I'll change your life. His pitch was all day. It was a lot better than that. But that was the essence of it. So I went home to my wife and I said, honey, I know in the last 12 months we got married. 3 months after we got married, we bought our first house. 9 months after that, we had our first baby. 3 months after that, you quit your job to become a stay-at-home mom of our first baby. So we got married, bought a house, had a baby. She quit her job, and I'm now the sole breadwinner for my wife and son, and I'm cold calling, interrupting strangers. So we were busy that year. And I said, honey, I need to go borrow all of this money to go hire this guy, Dan. I know it might be more than our mortgage. I got to go hire this guy, Dan. And she said, no. She said, last time you borrowed money didn't work out so well. You told me maybe you shouldn't do that again. No, thanks. I came back the next day and said, honey, you don't understand. I got to go hire this guy, Dan. And she said, you don't understand. Are you deaf? Well, there were a couple other words in between are you and deaf. You could guess what they might have been. I said, no, yesterday. I asked her every single day for 30 days in a row. Day 31, she said, you better pray this works. So I hired Dan. And in the first 2 years of working with Dan, my financial services revenue went up 435%, which is kind of unheard of in the financial services industry. There were 6,700 advisors at my Fortune 500 company that I worked for at the time, and I was 6,699th. For those of you bad at math, I was one up from the bottom. I hired Dan, and in 2 years, I was in the top 30 in the country. So it really, really worked. So I said, Dan, what do I do now? And he said, start a marketing company and do this for other people. 2 days later, there are no accidents. I got a phone call from the vice president of marketing for AAA, the Automobile Club, a local location of them. And he said, I got your marketing piece, your lead generation report. He knew what to call it for your financial services business. I can't use you. My brother-in-law is my advisor, but your report is better than anything we've got. Can I hire you for that? I said, I heard Dan's voice in my head saying, start a marketing company. I said, I don't know if you can hire me for that. How big a check can you write? And he said, well, here's my budget for the project. It's X. I said, you can hire me for that. And that started Market Domination LLC. That started the company. It was me and one client, and it has grown over the last 8 years to be one of the fastest growing privately held marketing firms in the country, according to the stats in Inc. magazine. An office building full of great team members and clients ranging all over the world, from individual entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 companies. So it worked really, really, really well. Along the way, I wrote 6 books. These are 5 of them: Financial Advisor Marketing Magic, Real Estate Marketing Magic, Cutting Edge Marketing Magic, Online Marketing Magic, The Facebook Ninja, and Podcast Marketing Magic, the training we're about to jump right into. So let's go right in. So podcasting, to me, equals freedom. Because think about it. If you can get impossible to reach decision makers, center of influence, referral sources, high-level clients to chase you, it totally transforms your business. Because right now you might be worrying about, where does the next client come from? Where does the next piece of business come from? How am I making payroll? How am I making rent? Trust me, I've had all of those issues. There are months I still have them. I haven't perfected my business yet, I freely admit, because I know how to market. I never learned how to grow a company. I just learned how to market from Dan. So I have since hired a CEO coach to learn how to actually manage a company, because I know nothing about managing. I just know how to market and get business for people. I didn't know anything about payroll and workman's comp and FICA and taxes and all that stuff. So anyway, podcasting equals freedom, because you can become your new phenomenal new source of referrals, traffic, and clients for you. It can get you media exposure. It can get you a book done without having to write it. It can get you a publishing contract. It can get you all sorts of amazing things that I'm going to teach you how to do right now. So a lot of the challenges people are facing when it comes to podcasting, they might not know what a podcast is. They might not know how to podcast. They might not know how to use it the way we use it to get the leverage that we do, but I'm going to walk you through all of that. So if you take away one thing from today's presentation, know this: iTunes is not a social network. iTunes is a media platform. Write that down. iTunes is a media platform. As soon as you have a podcast on iTunes, you own a media platform. You are now a media source. You are now a reporter, in essence. So you can use that to an incredible advantage that I'm going to show you right now. You could even use, I've even had clients who used it to get press passes to go to concerts, like get behind backstage, because they have a media platform now. So you can get a press pass. I haven't tried that, but I have clients who have. I'm not suggesting that that's why you should do this. But my wife is itching to meet Justin Timberlake, so I'll see what I can pull off for her. So if you don't know how to podcast, it doesn't matter. You don't have to. This is the Outdoor Boardroom podcast for our client, Gary Okino. Gary is a golf coach. Now, this is really interesting, and I want you to take some notes from this. Gary is a local golf coach in Western New York. In Western New York, it snows like 7 months out of the year. So golf season is really 3 or 4 months, and that's it. He can work those 3 or 4 months and give golf lessons. The rest of the time, it's snowing. He can't go outside. So his income was limited by how much money he could make in those 3 or 4 months. And so what we did with Gary is we said, if we build you a podcast, you've got a national, heck, global media platform. So that means you could reach clients all over the country where, say in Florida, golf season is 12 months out of the year. And what if you could get clients who liked you so much they would pay to fly you to Florida during the winter in Buffalo to give them golf lessons? And you could play on some of the best golf courses in the world, and you could have a business that generated revenue all year round. And Gary said, sign me up. How do I do that? So we built Gary a virtual coaching program where you learn via a membership, golf lessons via a membership site. He does lessons via Skype. He does lessons via GoToWebinar if you don't want to pay to fly Gary out to you. But the crazy program we created for Gary is called Your Last Golf Lesson Ever. It's for CEOs. So if you are a CEO who golfs of like a Fortune 500 company and you are famous for golfing in like charity or corporate golf tournaments, we interview you for the podcast to talk about your life lessons, business, golf, and life lessons learned from the outdoor boardroom. We ask stuff like, how do you learn about people on the golf course? Talk about what business deals you've closed on the golf course. Have you ever not done business with someone because of how they played golf? Stuff like that. So the CEOs are sharing their golf, life, business expertise. But then we've got some strategic questions like, what golf course is on your bucket list? If you could play with any living celebrity or athlete, who would it be? And then, what's your biggest challenge in your golf game right now? And then what happens is Gary then off the show says, hey, I noticed you said you wanted to play St. Andrews. You wanted to play with Bradley Cooper from American Sniper, the actor, because you were a sniper or whatever, or you really like the movie. And your biggest challenge is your slice. Well, I've got a program, maybe you'd be open to it, where I can get you on St. Andrews for 3 days with Bradley Cooper. We'll play the course every day, and I'll fix your slice in 3 games. You interested in learning more? Of course the CEO is. Now that program costs $100,000 a year for the CEO to be in, but Gary puts it together. He shows up, picks the CEO up on a private jet, flies over, picks up Bradley Cooper, flies over to St. Andrews, works with them for a couple of days, flies back, videos the whole thing, flies back. Now the CEO's got the world's greatest story of, I played St. Andrews with Bradley Cooper and my game is fixed. And Bradley Cooper gets his appearance fee and Gary's got a very nice chunk of change. And the way we're filling that program is by interviewing CEOs. So we're interviewing them on the show, talking to them about golf and business, and then and there's some downsells if they don't want to do $100,000 a year, if they don't want to fly to St. Andrews, he's got other programs for them. But he's getting flown around the world, even when it's winter here, to play and generate a whole lot more revenue. Gary does not know how to podcast. You do not know how to podcast. You don't need to. All you have to do is, I'm going to show you exactly how we do it. All you have to do is know how to dial a phone, press a record button, and read questions. That's literally all you've got to do. Now, could you go crazy and buy all sorts of fancy podcasting equipment and a whole audio studio and spend computer editing software and spend thousands of dollars? Sure. Is it going to make a huge difference in your business? No. I literally started my podcast with an iPhone, a free app on my iPhone, and that's it. Literally cost me $15 a month for the recording minutes time of the app that records the phone call. So you don't have to know how to podcast. What if you don't have time to podcast? Because if Gary's interviewing all these CEOs, so let's say he does 1 episode a week, it's 30 minutes an interview. What if you didn't have 30 minutes? What if you were just really, every hour of the day was booked? This is the estate attorney, Atlanta.com, Atlanta estate planning attorney and bestselling author Shane Smith. We literally do the interview for him. So his referral sources are financial advisors, CPAs, and nursing homes, because they see his older affluent clients who need estate planning. So we are interviewing financial advisors, CPAs, and nursing homes in Atlanta to be on his estate planning expert show. And then how you turn that into a book is we're transcribing that audio of the show and publishing the interview as a chapter in the book. So we're literally even doing his interviews for him because he's so busy. So you don't even have to have the time to do it yourself if you don't want to. Now, my bigger reason, obviously, I want to help you. I want to help you grow podcast, help you grow your business. This is my family. That's my incredible wife, Rebecca. And then Max is our 8-year-old son. Lily is our 2.5-year-old in the middle. And Ella is my 6-year-old angel to the left. Obviously, she took a leap of faith on me. So that's why I do this, is to keep her home with our wonderful high energy, high maintenance kiddos. This is the other reason I do this. I am a huge supporter of Kiva.org, Kiva.org. And they help third world, it's micro lending to third world entrepreneurs to help them get out of poverty. And I have literally helped hundreds of third world entrepreneurs get out of poverty by loaning them money. The interesting thing is, I probably have at least 1 or 2 clients every month whose credit card declines. It doesn't go through. They forgot to deposit money, or they forgot, something went wrong. I've had clients forgot to tell us to cancel. I've had clients bounce checks to me. I've never, every single third world entrepreneur I have loaned money to has paid me back. Every single penny. So just saying. All right. So what's different about the way we use podcasting, about podcast marketing magic? Some of the most common myths out there regarding podcasting that I'd like to dispel for you. You don't have to know how to podcast. You don't have to have the time, and you don't have to know how to get the right guests, because I'm going to show you that. I didn't know how to get the right guests. But as you see, if you go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast and then go to my podcast, you'll see I've interviewed some absolutely incredible thought leaders. And what you've got to do is think about, one of the things I want you to take away is, who else has your ideal client? So if I want to sell podcast marketing magic as a service, which I do, who else has other business owners as clients who are interested in marketing? Well, Roland Frazier of digital marketing certainly does. Sally Hogshead, New York Times bestselling author of Fascinate, certainly does. Joel Bogus of the Relaunch podcast certainly does. So I go interview other people with my audience. I get them on my show. And then when I interview Roland Frazier, the link to his episode, and say, your episode's up, here you go. Thank you so much for doing the show. What does he do? He emails his list out and says, look, I was on Seth's show. He Facebook posts it. He tweets it. And all of a sudden, Roland Frazier's episode is one of my most downloaded episodes because he drove traffic to it. He's promoting me because he's promoting my show. And of course, I'm going to show you how to get your show intro scripted in such a way that even if they don't listen to the whole show, they still get driven to your website for lead generation purposes. So I told you I would share with you the exact steps to successful podcasting. We are going to walk through them one by one. Get ready to write. The first thing you need is you need a podcast concept and you need a name. Then you need interview questions. And I told you, if you stuck with me, I would give you my exact interview questions and the psychology behind them. And then we need to book your first guest. Now I'm going to break these all down. I'm just going through them quick right now. Podcast concept and name, interview questions, book your first guest. So let's talk about your podcast name. So the first thing you want to do is search iTunes for the most successful podcast in your niche and name yours something similar to piggyback a little bit. But you cannot copyright infringe. No stealing anybody's name. You can also search in Google Keyword Planner, which is a free tool from Google that tells you how many people are searching for a certain keyword every month, because you want to make sure that there's traffic. If nobody's searching for it, no one's going to find you and no one's going to care. So here's an example. I went into iTunes and I searched for personal branding because we have a client in the personal branding space. And we found the top podcast in personal branding is the top left, right up here, called Life is a Marathon. So if I look at Life is a Marathon, it says life coaching, self-esteem, personal development, personal branding, positive thinking. That's his podcast title. That is a long title. Now, why would you think he would have such a long title? It's because he's trying to optimize and rank in iTunes for all those keywords. Now, here's the fantastic thing about this. You look over here, how you rank in iTunes, the iTunes search engine algorithm, for lack of a better word, is made up of a couple things. It's made up of your podcast title. It's made up of your little bio of who he is. It's made up of your description it's made up of the title of every episode, and it's made up with your ratings, how many 5-star ratings you've got, and your reviews. So in this case, he's the #1 podcast for personal branding. He's only got 92 reviews, which means it wouldn't take that much to unseat him. And it also counts subscribers and downloads and stuff like that. So that's the good news. You can literally see what your competition is doing, if there is any. Now I go look at the reviews, and for example, you will see a great addition to my playlist. Even though I've read Bruce's blog for a while, I was unsure what to expect in this podcast. I need not have been worried. Another quality offering. Thanks, Bruce. That's a podcast review. It's one sentence. You don't have to get people to write you 3 paragraphs, although it certainly helps. But you will see it's not that complicated. Now, if you go into Google Keyword Planner and we look at we type in personal branding as a product or a service, Google will come up with all these keywords and how many people are searching for them. Sorry about that. So for example, personal branding, the examples gets 4,270 searches a month, low competition. And if you were bidding on AdWords to drive traffic, you should bid about $3 a click. Personal branding strategy, this group gets 18,000 searches a month. Branding marketing gets 12,000 to 1,200. So you can see, you can then click all of these and go in and say, hey, what keywords do I want to show up for in iTunes? You notice personal branding as a whole, if they add all the personal branding keywords together, there's like almost 2 million searches a month, 1.5, a little bit 2.5, depending on the month. So that's a lot of traffic. And obviously some of that goes to iTunes, because if you have a ranked podcast in iTunes and you type in personal branding to Google, the podcast will hopefully come up. So there's your keyword research to find out, hey, what should I name my podcast? Now, your introduction should be a lead generation ad for your podcast and for the next action you want them to take. This is like the 2-minute intro before the show starts. It should position you as the expert in your niche and sell them on listening to you and on doing something. So I'm going to give you my exact script for my podcast. So mine is, welcome to the Direct Response Marketing Magic Podcast. Seth Green is a 5-time best-selling author, speaker, and nationally recognized direct response marketing expert who is CEO of one of the fastest growing direct response marketing firms in the country. Now here's the lead. That's the credibility part. Here's the lead gen part. To get free access to his magical marketing video series that will show you how to attract new customers like magic, simply register at ultimatemarketingmagician.com. On the podcast, now I'm selling them on why they should keep listening, Seth brings together some of the most cutting-edge thought leaders in the world to share with you how they grew their businesses and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Seth Green. Forgive my radio announcer voice. You should not voice your own intro. It should be somebody else. It should be a professional radio announcer to have music behind it. It should be like a radio show. That's what you want it to sound like. And we'll show you how to do that too. So here are my exact interview questions as to how I interview people and get business out of it. So you want to write these down. So my first interview question is, it'll say, here's your host, Seth Green. And I'll say, hey, thanks everybody for joining us on the Direct Response Marketing Podcast today. I've got my good fortune to be interviewing Nancy today. I'm going to interview Nancy Gordon today, and then I'll give her bio. Nancy is a world-renowned expert in blah, 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 blah. So I give a little bit of bio of the guest, and then I say, hey, Nancy, thanks for joining us. Thanks for so much for doing the show. And Nancy says, oh, thank you so much for having me, Seth. And I say, Nancy, I'm going to take you back in time a little bit and ask you, how did you get started? So you'll see mine says, how did you get started in marketing? But that's when I'm interviewing like a Roland Frazier. When I'm interviewing a marketing person, I tailor the questions to the person. So I'll say, how did you get started? And then Nancy will go off to the race and say, well, it started back in 1974 when I had a pet, and the pet had fibromyalgia and blah. That's not really Nancy's story. I'm being funny. But I'll say, how did you get started? And she will answer. And some of the time, Nancy will give me her whole career in the answer to that question. I had one gentleman who I interviewed on the podcast, and I said, how did you get started? And his answer was half an hour. So my next question was, thanks so much for doing the show. I don't have time to get to anything else. Sometimes you say, how did you get started? And they give you 2 sentences. So you've got to be able to vamp a little bit, and you'll get better with practice. And if you're in our podcasting group, I will interview you on my show. I will feature you on my show, get you more exposure, but you also get practice being interviewed so you see what it's like. So if they don't tell me, so sometimes people say, like I interviewed somebody today who said, I started with Allstate back in 1972 and now I'm doing X. And I'll say, okay, how did you get from Allstate in 1972 to where you are today? Because if they don't tell me that, I want to flesh out their story. So then I'll say, how did you get to this point in your career? How did you get to this firm? Next question is, what do you wish you knew when you started that you know now? And everyone always says, oh, that's a really good question. I wish I knew so many things. And then they'll start picking some. And these are like business lessons, things that they wish they had done differently. And it really adds value to your audience. So they learn from it. Next question I will say is, I find a lot of times our listeners learn more from our mistakes than our successes. What has been your biggest mistake and what did you learn from it? Because you got to have a positive, uplifting spin on it. If I just say, what was your biggest mistake, you might depress people. So I will say, what is your biggest mistake and what did you learn from it? And they'll tell me. And then I'll say, now I'll segue to more positive, with all the success you've achieved in your career, what's your biggest challenge today? And this is a lead generation question for me. One, they're going to share what their challenge is, which will help my audience because my audience will say, oh, that's my challenge too. I feel normal. Or, oh, it's not just me. But the biggest challenge question is because I want them to tell me what they're working on so that I can later say, hey, I can help you with that. So this could be, what's your biggest challenge in your golf game? Oh, it's my slice. What's the biggest challenge in, being an estate planning attorney? What's your biggest challenge in what's your biggest challenge with your fibromyalgia? Oh, geez, the pain, I just want to sleep all day. Or the pain, I can't play with my grandkids because the pain is so intense, and I have to sit and they want me to chase them and I wish I could, or something like that. You get the idea. I ask, what's your most successful marketing campaign? Because if I'm interviewing marketers, I want to learn from that. If I'm not interviewing a marketer, I might ask, something else. Like, for instance, I'm interviewing, my next book is on public relations, on getting publicity for your business. So I said, what's your most successful PR campaign? And one guy talked about how he got his clients on the cover of Time magazine and then written about on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And I'll say, how did you do that? Because I want to learn. What's your most successful, if I'm interviewing a chiropractor, it might be, what's your most successful story of, changing someone's life with chiropractic? And I had a chiropractor who said, well, I had parents who, they have an autistic child. He's sick, he's 5, he's never spoken. They're at their wit's end. They're so frustrated. They've been to every doctor on the planet, tried everything. They finally came in to see us. They were referred by someone and I adjusted their son and he spoke for the first time ever. And he talked about how the parents were crying, he was crying, and those parents, are patients for life now. They're never going anywhere else. And they're sending dozens. Every autistic parent is usually like in support groups, and they're telling every single autistic parent, go see this guy. They're not saying he's going to work a miracle with every kid, but so, that's an example of a successful thing that's not marketing. I ask, what's your most cutting edge magical marketing idea? Because I want to stay on the cutting edge. I want to know what the latest, greatest next thing is. I want to stay ahead of the curve. So you could phrase that very differently. So you could either eliminate the question or you could phrase it about, hey, what's your most cutting edge website idea? What is your most cutting edge use of golf in business? What is your most cutting edge insurance asset protection technique? It doesn't really matter. And then I will say, with all the information overload and everything coming at us every day and the 5,000 messages and 300 emails we all get bombarded with, how do you stay on top of it all? How do you stay on the cutting edge? And they'll talk about how they balance their life. They'll talk about how they juggle all those demands on their time, which is something I want to know because something I struggle with. And they might mention an app that works really well, a computer program, a software thing, or some way of managing information. You could say this about anything. How do you keep up on your golf game? How do you find time to practice? You could talk about, I have an insurance agent doing a podcast, and bricks and mortar, regular commercial insurance agent. His ideal client is a restaurant owner, a high-end restaurant owner. So not a chain and not a one location mom and pop, but a multi-location, like 5-star restaurant owner. So his questions are geared towards the restaurant business, because the podcast is Secrets of Successful Restaurant Owners. I have a chiropractor who I just mentioned interviewing other chiropractors. It's the Chiropractic Success Secrets podcast, where he's interviewing other chiropractors to find out what to make them successful. And then when he's asking them about their challenges and their struggles, later saying, hey, I can help you with that. What do you read each month? I want to know what magazines, trade journals, newsletters are subscribing to, because I will learn something that I don't know about something I should be reading. So again, I want to know where my prospects are. So for example, Gary, the golf coach, says, what do you read each month to the CEO? And one of the CEOs said, oh, I love CEO magazine. And Gary said, there's a CEO magazine? Yes, there is. And the only people who read it really are CEOs? Uh-huh. He's like, holy cow, those are all my ideal clients. Can I put an ad in there? I mean, he didn't ask the CEO if he could put an ad in there, but that's the idea. He never would have discovered that if he hadn't asked the question. I am a voracious reader and learner. So I always ask what are the 3 best books you've ever read that have the most impact on your work? Because I want to go read them because I'm going to learn something. So hey, you could rephrase that in any way you want. And then sometimes I will say, there are a lot of companies out there that say they do some of what you do. Of course, nobody does everything our guest does because our guest is special. And I'll say, what makes you different from other firms? And they'll tell me. And then I'll say, for our listeners who are resonating with what you're saying, who want to learn more about Roland Frazier, where should we send them? Where should they go? And they'll give out a website or a book or something. So we want to give our guest an opportunity to promote themselves if that's appropriate for them. So those are my secret interview questions and the psychology behind them. And the ones that make me the money are the questions are what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest mistake? Those are the ones that make me the most money because I follow up after the show and say, hey, I noticed that you said your biggest challenge was X. I wrote about that and I got a chapter about that in my new book. Is it okay if I send you a copy of it? Sure, that'd be great. And then I put a Post-it note on the chapter. I put a letter in there. I mail them the book. And then I call them up and say, hey, I highlighted the chapter for you. Did you have a chance to read it? You want to talk about it? Yeah, I would. Because again, I led with giving first. I got them exposure. I put them on my show. In their mind, I did them a favor first. So those are the questions. Then the next thing is you want to get the call recorder app. Record the interview and get an intro. And we're going to walk through that. Now, you do not need to use the call recorder app I use, but you can. There are many, 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 many ways to record a telephone call or record audio. You could use call recorder, which I'm going to show you. You could use Skype. You could use GoToWebinar. You could use Google Hangout. So it doesn't matter. But here's what I'm going to show you. If you go in the App Store on your iPhone and you type in call recorder, you will see call recorder free. Record phones for iPhone. So you go get it. You do not need the $10 Tape a Call Pro version below it. You just need the call recorder free. And then what happens is you have this little app on your phone. You buy credits, like again, it cost me $15 or whatever a month. And then here you are. You just hit the record button and it starts recording. And then you hit add contact and you add the person you're calling and they answer the phone. And then you say, are you ready to get started? You talk a little bit for a minute or two, and then you hit merge call and it starts recording. And then, so here's me adding the contact, and then you merge the call, it records it, you hang up at the end, and then in the call recorder app, up pops the recording, and you email it to yourself as an MP3 file. That's all you've got to do. That's it. And then remember that introduction we scripted for you earlier. That's both credibility, lead generation, and sells the show. You can go to Fiverr.com and type in podcast intro and get someone to professionally record your podcast introduction for $5. Now, of course, we can do it for you, be a little bit higher end, but you can get it for $5. They will email you an MP3 file, and then all you have to do is splice your intro with the recorded phone from call recorder and merge it into one MP3 file, and poof, you've got a podcast episode. You can use a free audio editor like Audacity, and you just plug in the 2 files, cut and paste, it's the equivalent of cutting, pasting, and hitting print, and you've got a new MP3 file of your show. That's all a podcast is. That's all you've got to do. Then you've got to get it to iTunes. So what you're going to do there is you're going to sign up for something called Lisbon, which will host your podcast, depending on how much you want to spend a month and how much you want, what statistics you want, somewhere between like $10 and $40 a month. You upload each episode to Lisbon. You put in a headshot of the guest. You put in their bio. You hit submit. And again, Libsyn will tell iTunes. It will show up on iTunes. And poof, you now have a podcast on iTunes. And you just keep doing the same process over and over and over again. And then you take your MP3 file of your podcast and you have it transcribed. You could, again, do this on Fiverr, or we use transcribeyourbook.com. If you email Cindy at transcribeyourbook.com, tell her I sent you. They charge $1 a minute, I believe. And they have humans do it, not machines. So they physically type it and send you back a Word doc. And then all you have to do is edit it. And you've got a chapter in a book. Now, depending on how long the interview goes, you might have 5 pages in a chapter. You might have 10 or 15 or 20 pages in a chapter. And depending on how long you want your book is how many chapters you need, how many interviews you need to do. And that's your book. Now you have a podcast and you've got a book. You got a book done without doing a book. My book, Cutting Edge Marketing Magic, I interviewed marketing thought leaders, turned it into a book. Podcast Marketing Magic is me that you just got. I interviewed, as you saw, 20 podcasters. So my next book, PR Marketing Magic, will be also interviews. So I have gotten, I've actually gotten 5 out of 5 books done, 5 of my 6 without having to write them myself. And you can do exactly the same thing. Now, here's the really cool part. So when the episode goes up on iTunes, you email it to your guest and say, hey, here's your episode. It's up. So they will go promote it. You could even give them sample emails to send out, social media links to tweet and post to the link to the episode, which they will happily share. And then when the book comes out, what do you think you do again? Say, hey, the book is out. How'd you like to, here's a copy of it. And then here's links and posts to promote the fact that you were in a book, because you're making them look good. So they're going to drive all their people, all their clients and prospects to you. I don't know why nobody is doing it this way. Again, I've interviewed 20 of the top podcasters in the world and some folks who weren't the top podcasters in the world. I've talked to hundreds of people about this. Nobody is doing it this way. Nobody has thought about it this way that I know of. And it works so well. So I guess my question would be, will you be our next success story? So that's how we do it. Now, if you want to get this done for you, what does that look like? So our podcast marketing magic service, we create your podcast for you. We script and produce the professional introduction for you. Most importantly, we find the guests for you. So you tell me, we have a brainstorming session about who your ideal referral source or client is, and we go get the guests. So for example, we use our marketing magic to get the guests for you. So for my chiropractor success secrets, first week or two, you're only doing 1 episode a week, but we had like 18 chiropractors respond to the first marketing campaign we sent out saying, hey, want to be on our show. We had a woman, a company, endcramps.com, that produces all natural cream that literally gets rid of your menstrual cramps. It prevents them from coming. And then when you have them, if you didn't use it, and you use it when it actually gets rid of them. Thousands of women swear by it. And what's amazing is we thought, who serves her audience of women with PMS who would buy this? So we said, you know what? We need to do a podcast and a book. And the people who we're going to interview who have the biggest audiences are mommy bloggers, because the mommy bloggers and the mommy podcasters have hundreds of thousands or millions of moms following them. So let's go interview them for the book and get them to drive all their moms to my client. So it's just about thinking creatively. For Gary, we're getting, we're getting large company CEOs who golf to respond and say they want to be on the show. So we've got that network of whatever industry you're in, whoever you're serving, we can find them and get them to be the guests on your show. We write the interview questions for you, although you could rescript those yourself. We edit the audio, we upload to iTunes, we get all that done for you. But wait, there's more. I lead a 2 to 3 hour marketing mastermind group every month here in Buffalo. I teach our cutting edge direct response marketing content, not just podcasting. I teach everything we're doing for our clients every month that's working. So you stay on the cutting edge of everything marketing, everything direct response, and I teach it for 2 to 3 hours. We video that and make those recordings available along with the PowerPoints and the Word docs and everything you need to do what we're teaching for yourself in a membership site. You get access to that, which is $2,364, comes free with Podcast Marketing Magic. I will send you copies of my book, Cutting Edge Marketing Magic. I will send you copies of Financial Advisor Marketing Magic and Real Estate Marketing Magic. Financial Advisor Marketing Magic, don't be misled. It's not just for financial advisors. It is a swipe file of 12 months of my direct mail marketing campaigns that work for financial services to generate new clients and new referrals. But they are easily modifiable for any business you're in. So you get a copy of those 2 books, plus I'll give you 3 of my favorite books from my mentor, Dan Kennedy, No BS Direct Marketing, The Ultimate Sales Letter, and Marketing to the Affluent. You also get email access to me to answer all of your questions, and we will work personally with you to develop your podcast, book your guests, transcribe your show, market your book, do the design and publication and printing of your book, you name it, we cover it. So you get 12 months of access to our virtual marketing mastermind group, Cutting Edge Marketing Magic, Financial Advisor Marketing Magic, Real Estate Marketing Magic, Dan Kennedy's No BS Direct Response, Ultimate Sales Letter, Marketing to Affluent, email access to me, and your podcast done for you every single month with 4 episodes a month done. You add all that up, it's $14,155.55 of retail value. We normally sell it for $19.97 a month on our website, but because you signed up and watched this training webinar and you got an advanced copy of the book, it is $9.97 a month, 50% off. And I have to ask, if all it did for you was get you in front of your dream referral sources and prospects, would it be worth it? If all it did was get your next book done without you having to write it and give you an army of people who are willing to promote your book, which you probably might not have right now, would that be worth it? If all it did was get you new customers, clients, or patients, would that be worth it? Now, can you do this? Let me ask you some dumb questions. Can you dial a phone? Can you push a record button? Can you read a series of questions and sound intelligent? And if we do it for you, we'll edit the Word document. But if you were doing it yourself, could you edit a Word doc? I gotta believe the answer to those questions is yes. Plus, I'll guarantee it. First 30 days, 100% satisfaction, buy it back guarantee. If you're not happy with the results in the first 30 days, is your book going to be done in a month? No, of course not. You need a whole lot of interviews to make up a book. But in the first month, you will have guests, you will have interviews, you'll have questions, you'll have episodes, you'll have a podcast up, and you'll have some transcriptions, all in less than 30 days. If you want, we'll give you your money back, or you can cancel anytime. But you're not, because you're going to love it. Are you worth it? Of course you are. When should you take action? You should take action now. How do you do that? Go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you. You can watch all the details broken down even more, and you can enroll, and we'll literally get started right away, like tomorrow. So I know I've given you a ton of content. That is the exact process we followed to get an army of people promoting Podcast Marketing Magic. It's what got my podcast in front of 2.2 million people, because all of the podcasters who were in the book then had me on their podcast to promote the fact that they were in the book, which again is part of the secret sauce. And we do all of that for you. So if I highly encourage you to either start podcasting right away. We got some questions. And if not, if you're going to do it yourself, hopefully I think I've given you enough to do it, but we will happily do it for you. Hang on, I have a question I'm going to invite. Okay, Nancy, I'm converting you into a presenter so that you can ask your question live. You've got to, okay. Fire away, Nancy. What's your question? Can you hear me? Or can you type it in the chat box? Because I can't hear you. All right, we're waiting for Nancy to type her question. Oh, in the meantime, I see other questions. Okay, how many podcast episodes do I have to do every month? There's no requirement. I would say you should do it. Your podcast should be at least it should be once a week. There are podcasts like John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire and some other people and Garrett White who do, like, some people do it every day. I don't, for the purposes of this, you're not trying to become, the next Entrepreneur on Fire giant podcast. The point of this is to get you business. So I would say once a week is plenty. Good. Oh, more questions coming in. You talked about the secret sauce being booking guests. How do you know that we can get your guests, that you can get us guests? I have done this. We have done this for people in a bunch of different industries. It's worked every single time. We'll guarantee it. If it doesn't work, we'll refund your money. I haven't had a niche it didn't work in. I've done this for attorneys, financial advisors, dentists, chiropractors, lawyers, information marketers, author, speaker, coach, consultants, alternative health and energy people. I've done it for insurance agents. We've done it for trying to think of weird niches. We've done it. We haven't found one that it hasn't worked in yet. Other questions? How would you, if I can't hire you and I need to book guests, how would you suggest I start? I would start on social media. So I would build a list of who is your ideal referral source, for example, and build a list of, let's say, 25 of them. And I would send them a email, send them a Facebook message, send them a tweet, and say, hey, love what you're doing, love to get you on the show, interviewing, starting a show, and or starting a book. Because if you say this is for a podcast interview, they may say, how many listeners do you get? And when you get 0, it's not as compelling. So I would probably lead with, hey, I'm writing a book about X, love to feature you in it. You open to being interviewed. As simple as, our system is a lot more sophisticated than that, but that will literally work. Nancy, okay, you just found the box. Awesome, Nancy. What's your question? For your book based on podcast interviews, did you have to get a signed release from them to publish? I've never gotten a signed release from anybody. That's a good question. I have emails all saying, because what I do is I will email them the audio once it's edited. Once we have the intro spliced in and say, is this okay to air on our podcast? And then when I've edited the transcription, I will email it to them and say, do you approve of the transcription? Is this okay? And they will send back, yes. So I haven't had them sign a formal release form, but I've had them just say okay. And then I send them a copy of the advanced manuscript saying, do you approve the final manuscript? And I had people say, oh, like, for example, Joel Bogus, who's of Relaunch, who's in the book, emailed back and said, hey, I have more subscribers now than when you interviewed me for your book. So up it to 750,000. So I went in and changed that. So they get a copy of the podcast, a copy of the transcript, and a copy of the manuscript. So I didn't do a formal release, but I have emails saying, yeah, this is okay. Good question. I never thought of that. See, I'm not a legal guy. I'm just a marketing guy. Any other questions? I don't see any. Okay. Hopefully I've had a ton of content, a ton of value. I've given you the exact steps I followed. Hopefully you can I have inspired you to podcast. And if I've inspired you to talk to us about having us do it for you, even better, check out podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you. I hope you like the book. I hope you like the training. And I look forward to hearing from you. Nancy, keep the emails. I am a legal gal. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate the feedback. I have saved all the emails, but I will make sure they're all in one folder in Outlook. Maybe I'll print them and save them in a physical file too. And thank you for the feedback. Great presentation. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Thanks everybody for attending. I hope you got a lot out of it.